There's no force more powerful than a woman determined to rise. And that spirit comes alive in our guest for the day, Radhika Gupta, as we invite her to celebrate equality in expertise for the Women's Day 2026. She needs no introduction, but let me try. Radhika Gupta is the managing director and CEO of Edelweiss Mutual Fund, where she has led the firm's AUM growth from 6,500 crores in 2017 to 1.5 lakh crore by May 2025. She's a prominent public voice on finance and leadership, a judge on Shark Tank India, and a young leader of the World Economic Forum. Welcome, Radhika.
Thank
We're
you.
truly honored to have you here
Thank
today.
you.
I would like to roll in my first question for the day. You stepped into leadership at a relatively young age in this highly competitive financial ecosystem. How was your leadership philosophy as a woman? How has it evolved over the years, particularly in navigating scale, accountability, stakeholder trust, and biases?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. Thank you for chatting with me. And leadership, in my view, is exactly that. It evolves because there's no functional definition of what a leader is. Theoretically, actually, a chief executive officer doesn't do anything. I don't even know why it's called chief executive officer, because you don't execute anything. And so the demand of what the role is and the demand of what I think a leader is out to do will change. And I think the best leaders are those who are malleable, who are adaptable. Um, and I remember when I joined the business, of course, it was a substantially smaller business. The scale, the scope, the stakeholders were a lot smaller than they are today. So it's gone from a single bit of a scrappy little startup where a lot of leadership was just about getting the troops together, getting basic ideas on the board, finding ways to look different, to a much larger scalable firm where you have many more things to manage. So, and I think I've also grown up in that journey, and I've also largely grown up in the public eye because people have seen me online so much. I've also realized as I've changed as a person that, and I wrote this on social media a couple of weeks ago, that much of leadership is actually just wisdom and the right displays of wisdom, knowing when to react, knowing when not to react, knowing what decisions to take quickly, knowing what decisions to take a lot more thoughtfully, knowing when to motivate, knowing when to be tough. So I've historically been an extremely impatient person. I am probably the most impatient person. I mean, being with me at an airport is just annoying because I'm impatient. I was the kind of person who would wait for the seatbelt sign to turn off and pride myself on running out of the aircraft first, or be the person who said, if a flight's at 3 o'clock, I can make it to the airport by 2:20 and blitz my way through security and catch that flight. I'm not that person anymore. I think there's a lot more patience, there's a lot more therav, and hopefully there's a little bit more element of wisdom. So that is what has changed.
So, taking from what you just said, display of wisdom, right? And the decisions that you take as a CEO, while you make it sound so easy, kuch kaam nahi karti ho, but I'm sure as a CEO, you make 1,000 decisions every day. In one of your interviews, you have said, I made a choice to wear saris in my career to look older and more serious or wiser. Do you feel these boardroom biases still exist in the corporate world?
I come from a very old school of thought. There is a world that says, you can show up in a sweatshirt and jeans and, it's all good. But I do think the business of money, the business of wealth, the business of asset management is one of trust. And when people look at this business, they look towards someone who has their act together. They look towards someone they trust. I was brought up on traditional old school Wall Street. So I think a little bit of that bias or that expectation does exist. I have to tell you, and this is less true now because I'm better known, but in the early days, when I transitioned from wearing Western formals to sarees, if on one day I would not wear a sari and I would just move back to Western formals or wearing even a salwar kameez, the way people would look at me would change. I really, yeah, I just felt people took me less seriously. It's just hilarious. And some of it also, I think, comes from the way you carry yourself. So a lot of these issues are actually internal. You just, at that point, I felt a lot more powerful, a lot more grown up, a lot more confident. Now, as I said, it doesn't matter, but this is 7, 8 years later.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter for you. But let's say for, new entrants, women who are now coming in the financial system, do you think they still need to dress up to be heard?
I'm not saying everyone needs to go out and wear a sari. You do you, I do me. But I think whatever you need to do to feel your most confident self, whether it's dressing a particular way or speaking a particular way, or as my son does it these days, he actually goes to the mirror in front of the house. It's hilarious. He's 3.5 years old and he goes to this mirror in front of the house and he hugs himself and he says, I love you.
Oh, that is so cute.
And it's like the self-love exercise he does as a 3.5-year-old. So whether it's the self-love exercise you need to do or something you need to chant to yourself, think whatever it makes to push your most confident self out the door, do it.
Fair, fair. Well, moving on to markets and economy, India is a demographic sweet spot, and this is expected to drive future consumption, economic growth, equity markets over the next couple of decades, sorry. But youth need meaningful employment to fulfill their and country's aspirations, right? Are we doing enough to generate employment at a large scale and meet these aspirations, or we need to do more as a country to fulfill the promise of demographic dividend?
I think we never do enough. The demographic dividend is a genuine and real opportunity. It's the largest and most exciting thing about our country. Every time I speak to a college campus and they ask me why I'm optimistic on India, I said, the answer is right in front of you, my friends. And the demographic dividend is also your biggest demographic liability, because if you don't give this young population productivity, then you have a problem on your hands. And I think the answer is multifold. One answer is jobs, and it can't be 1 lakh applicants for the next railway job. You really have to have industries that are labor intensive, beyond IT and IT services, that can absorb jobs. The other place is, I think, where we have done a lot of work, but more work can be done, is to improve the ecosystem for entrepreneurship. I think jobs can create a certain amount of employment, but if youth in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, I've seen this out of Shark Tank, can go out and build meaningful businesses at a very young age, then that is a great demographic opportunity. Now, the good thing is, in the period that I have moved back to India in the last 10, 15 years, the environment from entrepreneurship has gone from here to here. So I think the environment for youth entrepreneurship, it is suddenly cool for a young person to be an entrepreneur versus तुम क्या करने जा रहे हो, इतना रिस्क कौन लेगा, all of that. I think ease of doing business is something that we can continue to make easier for entrepreneurs. I have hundreds of stories around this, but I can tell you, in many, many industries, particularly manufacturing, it is not easy to start up. The number of compliances, windows, etc. And this is work in progress. But I think as a country, a single-minded focus on letting the youth live their potential and possibilities, whether it's through jobs, whether it's through entrepreneurship. I would say the government has done a fantastic job, by the way, on stopping unproductive assets, whether it's this whole real money thing, real money gaming thing, or FNO. So channelizing the most productive amount of our energy is really all we can do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I'm sure a lot of that, Shark Tank experience for you would have, played out these stories. Coming to, the weekend and maybe beyond that, so much happening in the global market environment, geopolitics, tariff trade, AI taking center stage, and all of this amidst a moderate, or if I would like to call it so, a slowing India economy and growth rate. How can a new and existing investor be guided on the course of investments going forward?
I mean, firstly, the real answer is seek guidance. I think a lot of investors, and I speak to lots of them, are roaming around, scrambling to find answers without guidance. So I'm not saying this because we're sitting next to each other. find sensible guidance, especially if you are new. Look, we have been talking about slowdown, volatility, etc., because the last 18 months have been that way. But markets and investing climate have never been perfect. We perhaps experienced an extraordinary period after COVID where there was no bad news, no volatility, no geopolitics, and people made disproportionate amount of money for 3, 4 years. That is not reality. It will never be reality. So you will never have a set of perfect investment climate. I think the advice for everyone is you have to start zooming out. We live in a world where it was always zoomed in, but thanks to social media and the proliferation of news, we are extremely zoomed in. So, last night's event, tomorrow's forecast, day after's budget, this trade deal, every event is a zoom in event. And our time horizon, I mean, I ask people how much they check their portfolio because I check mine quarterly and everybody is checking it multiple times a day. Mutual fund NAVs don't update multiple times a day. And I genuinely think people need to zoom out. So, very few people are talking about 5-year opportunities, decadal opportunities. When I'm building my business, I don't think less than 5 years. I don't think less than 10 years. And remember, when you're investing in equities, you're investing in companies. And companies will be built over 5, 10 years.
So when you say that, what's the best asset class? I mean, today, if I was to,
The best asset class has always been a combination of asset classes. I think investors do a terrible job at timing individual asset classes. I launched a gold and silver fund, which was the country's first 3 years ago. And it came out on my birthday, the NAV. And we struggled to collect 15 crores in an NFO. Struggled. We had to beg and scream to make sure the NFO went through. And in January, I got 40 crores a day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of volume we're.
So the best asset class has always been a thali. It has always been a blended portfolio of domestic equity, international equity, gold, silver, and fixed income. The quantum, honestly, your advisor will sit and tell you what to do. But the best asset class has always been a multi-asset.
Great. I think we'll take you up on that advice. I hope more and more people go to wealth managers. My last question. What would your advice for women aspiring to be a leader like you in the financial space be?
So I think welcome. I mean, this is an exceptionally good industry. You are a woman present in this industry, but I think it's been for me an industry that has been extremely kind. I would say in India even more so than it's the US because about 30% of my career has been overseas. So I think it's an extremely welcoming industry. We finally live in a country that has a female finance minister, has had multiple regulatory heads, half the banking sector run by women. So there is no glass ceiling in this industry for women. We've seen women occupy the highest echelons of leadership in this industry. And I genuinely think it's a very good one. I would say don't fall for the stereotypes. Much of the challenge and stereotypes we face or see in this industry are very, very internal. And it demands, it's a dynamic industry, right? It's constantly changing. India's capital markets are evolving. It's so tied to global markets. So it demands hard work. It demands a certain amount of resilience and agility. But it's a very, very welcoming industry for women. So I mean, really welcome.
Thank you for that. That's very inspiring, Radhika. I'll move on to a rapid fire fun section.
Oh God.
Don't promise a hamper at the end of this, but let's try. Okay. Your favorite book?
Oh, my favorite book. I largely read fiction books, okay? So Khaled Hossein is actually my favorite author.
Wow. Did I hear Mango Millionaire anywhere?
I write non-fiction books. I read fiction books and I read poetry books. So currently I am reading a compilation of poems by Sahil Ludhianvi.
Oh, wow.
So I either read poetry or I read fiction and I write non-fiction because I'm not talented enough to write fiction.
One habit that anchors you?
One habit that anchors me, time management. I think it's very important, planning and time management.
That's a real asset to have, actually.
I hate doing stuff last minute. It stresses me out.
Yeah. Okay, a financial myth that needs to be broken.
Or this best mutual fund bit, because you go everyone, they're like, madam, what is the best mutual fund? What is the best one for you? There is no best mutual fund.
Okay, most underrated skill in leadership today.
Empathy.
So well said. Yeah, yeah.
Lot of
Do you think that's a very women thing?
it should
Sorry,
not be-
I've added that question on my own.
No, it's okay. It should not be a woman thing.
Yeah.
Although theoretically, I think women should be extraordinarily good at it, because if you look at the average mother, she's a queen of stakeholder management, because she probably runs a company, has a husband, has in-laws, has kids, and still deals with all of them with a smile. So theoretically, I think women are exceptional stakeholder managers, but I really think empathy is very, very underrated.
A message you'd give your 25-year-old self.
I would not give my 25-year-old self any more advice, okay? Because when I was 20 or 25, I was getting a boatload of advice from how I should look, to who I should get married to when I should have kids, to what I should do with my career. And I genuinely think, especially women, get too much unnecessary advice. And finally, they have to learn to trust their own instincts. So I would not give myself much more advice.
That's very well said, actually.
We just get too much advice.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think we should just let our journeys be,
Yeah.
make our mistakes,
Yeah.
and move on. No more extra advice. One more Poopaji giving me advice is really not necessary.
Yeah, fair. Okay, early retirement or purposeful work forever?
Purposeful work forever. I don't get the, probably some Gen Z is going to give, I don't get the, what will you retire and do? If you enjoy what you do, then you don't count hours. So I don't get this whole fire and, karoge kya?
Yeah, I mean,
Going to
put your
sit
feet
in
up at a beach house or something.
How many days will you, okay, I'm being very judgmental. How many days will you go sit on a beach? I will get bored at some point.
Yeah. I'm all for purposeful work forever.
Well, work
So
should be fun and purposeful, and you can calibrate the pace of it. You can slow down the pace of work.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. It was an honor to have you today.
Thank you.
And, the answers were, as usual, very candid and from the heart. And I think we love that about you. Thanks for being there.
Thank you.
Shri Ram Wealth. Wealth your way.